Most people spend their entire lives trying to earn more money, but very few ever learn how wealth actually survives. Because making money and keeping wealth are not the same thing. A man can work for 30 years, save faithfully, avoid foolish spending, and still lose everything from one difficult season, one recession, one illness, and one economic collapse. But when you study the families that remained strong across generations, you begin to notice something unusual. The wise rarely depended on one stream alone, not one income, not one business, not one system. They built in layers. And strangely, one of the oldest versions of this wisdom appears again and again in ancient history, even during the era associated with King Solomon himself. The principle was simple: one part to protect wealth, one part to grow wealth, and one part kept ready for difficult times. 3 pillars, 3 forms of stability. And before this video ends, I want to show you why the 3rd pillar may quietly be the most important one of all. The first pillar was land, real things, things people will always need. Think about it carefully. Currencies rise and fall, governments change, entire economies shift, but people will always need food, shelter, water, homes, land. That never disappears. This is why wealthy families throughout history quietly accumulated farms, property, and infrastructure whenever they could. Not because it looked glamorous, but because it created stability. A business can fail, a currency can weaken, but people will always need somewhere to live. That truth has survived every empire in history. Even King Solomon once wrote, "The profit of the earth is for all." Not merely poetry, but an observation about reality itself. Now, many people hear this and immediately think, I could never afford real estate. But wisdom does not begin with abundance. It begins with structure. Today, there are many ways ordinary people slowly build ownership. REITs, housing funds, shared investments, small land purchases, long-term property assets. The principle matters more than the scale, because the goal is not to appear rich. The goal is to become harder to destroy. And before we continue, tell me where you are listening from tonight. This world has become heavy for many families lately. So let this comment section become a place of wisdom, encouragement, and prayer for one another. But land alone is slow. It protects wealth, yet it does not always multiply it quickly. And this brings us to the 2nd pillar: business, enterprise, production. Most people spend their lives trading hours for money. Wise builders eventually realize something different. If your income disappears the moment you stop working, your structure is fragile. Throughout history, merchants understood this deeply. A farmer could only work one field alone, but a marketplace, a mill, a shipping route, a store could continue producing value long after the owners stepped away. This is why ownership matters. A useful service, a strong company, a digital asset, a partnership, a trusted brand. These things continue working beyond physical labor alone. Imagine 2 men. One carries buckets of water every morning just to survive. The other builds a well. The first man must begin again every sunrise. The second man owns the source. That is the difference between labor and leverage. And this is where many people become trapped. They increase income, but never build systems. They work harder every year, yet remain one emergency away from financial fear. But wise builders think differently. They understand that stability is not found in working endlessly. It is found in building wisely. Yet even strong businesses can struggle during difficult seasons. Markets slow down, fear spreads, customers disappear, and this leads us to the 3rd pillar: the one ancient kingdoms guarded carefully and modern people often ignore completely. Liquid reserves, cash, gold, emergency capital, safe, short-term assets. Most people think cash is weak because it is not constantly growing. But wise people understand something important. Cash is not only about growth. Cash is about options. Ancient kingdoms stored grain before famine arrived. Not during the famine, before it. Because preparation always happens before the storm appears. And when panic spreads through economies, something predictable happens every single time. People begin selling valuable things cheaply just to survive. Homes, businesses, assets, dreams. But the prepared quietly wait. And when fear reaches its highest point, they move carefully, wisely, patiently. This is why wise builders never place everything into one basket. One pillar protects, one pillar grows, one pillar prepares. Together, they create resilience. And perhaps this is the deeper lesson modern culture rarely teaches. True wealth is not merely about luxury. It is about reducing fragility. It is about building a life where one disaster does not erase an entire generation of effort. Quiet wisdom often looks boring in the beginning, but during difficult seasons, it becomes priceless. So before we leave tonight, I want you to reflect honestly. If an economic storm arrived tomorrow morning, which pillar of your life would feel weakest first? Your stability, your income, or your reserves? Leave your answer below. I truly read them. And wherever you are listening from tonight, may wisdom guide your decisions. May your household remain protected during uncertain seasons. May your hands continue to find meaningful work. And may the future you build bring peace not only to you, but to the generations that come after you. Until next time, stay wise and stay prepared.